Now I want to start working on the outside pieces of my bearing. I want to leave 3/8 sticking out. I set my beam compass to a setting that'll make a circle 3/8 of an inch bigger all the way around from the size of the cage. Now I've set my compass to be the same size as the inside circle. At this point, everything I do I'm going to be doing twice, because I'm making an exact copy on both circles. You also want to draw a circle that represents the outside of the cage as well. Don't just set the cage in place and trace it. Make all new circles with the compass. If you have any imperfections in your cage, you don't want to transfer them to the new pieces that we're making on the bearing. I made a 3/32 pilot hole, but I didn't go the whole way through the material this time. Don't forget that what we're working on is actually the inside of the bearing, not the part that you see. So I didn't want to go all the way through the Lazy Susan's top. So in order to do this, I had to cut this screw just a little bit so it stopped short of going through. The first route that I want to make is this flat seat route. Before I can do that, I have to figure out how deep that I have to route. I'll start by measuring the thickness of this. Now all I have to do is take half of that number. Now I'm going to change back to my straight bit. When setting the depth for this route, we want to make it a little bit deeper than halfway because we want to give it some extra play. Setting the depth accurately can be tricky, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I hope I don't bore you with this. I put a piece of plexiglass underneath, and it stopped right there. That's as low as the router can go. So I know that's flush with whatever I'm routing. Now I'm going to move this little thing up 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. Tighten it. Now when I drop the router down to this stopper, it'll go 0.125 into the material. Since I need it to go 0.1 ideally, the 0.25 will be my extra play that I need. Before we route, we should cut the veneer plywood on the top layer. I took apart my beam compass and put this X-Acto knife in it. It's a little less tedious than using a utility knife. Finally, time to start routing. I'm going to do the outside circle first, and then I'm going to do the outside circle on the other half. Don't change the setting. It's easier to change the screw, and that way we'll get identical parts. It took quite a few passes to make it nice and smooth, and I had to sand my fuzz off again because it was keeping the deck of the router up high. But now both outside circles are done. I'm going to move to the inside circle now. If the cage rides real nicely in its slot, we're ready to do the groove for the marbles. I'm using a 1/2 inch round nose bit. As far as setting the depth goes, in the prototype I have just over a 1/16 of an inch of play in between the two halves of the bearing. I'm going to try to duplicate that. Sorry to complicate things, but you should be used to it by now. These marbles are a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch, and my round nose bit is exactly a 1/2 inch. So I have to make my first pass favor the right side, and then the second pass will favor the left side. The difference is only a 1/16 of an inch, just enough to inconvenience me. If you can be lucky enough to find 1/2 inch marbles, you can do it with just one pass. It's very important on this route not to go too deep. The depths of both routes put together should still not add up to the width of the marble. Remember, we want to put a 1/16 of an inch space in between, maybe even more. You can always take off more later. Alright, I'm done making both tracks for the marbles to ride in. Once again, I'd like to remind you that I did the outside portion on both circles, on this one and this one, and then switched my setting to the inside portion. It's all about consistency to make both parts identical. The last operation that we have to do with the router compass is to make the final cut. But so that I don't have to remove so much material, I'm going to rough cut these circles out first with a jigsaw. Wow, this sandpaper is purple, and twice the price. Don't waste your money. It gums up just as fast as normal sandpaper. And if you want to make the back of old gator grit sticky, just hit it with some spray adhesive. Don't get too close to the line. Jigsaws are hack tools. Now it's time to make this route against the outside line to complete our circle. I'm not going to route through the entire thickness of the material. I'm going to stop short about 1/8 of an inch, and then later I'm going to use this flush trim bit to finish the circle from the other side. Because so much of my router is hanging over the edge, I'm going to affix this piece of scrap plywood to the base of it with this double-sided tape, and it'll ride like a sled along while I'm making the cut, just to make sure that the router doesn't fall down on this end. As you can see, I'm taking it down in steps. This is my first pass, this is my second pass, and this is my final pass. It leaves just a little bit of material on the bottom that I'll get later when I flip the piece upside down to finish it. From down here underneath the router, we can see that when the bearing rides against the surface we want to cut flush with, this flush trim bit blade cuts anything that's sticking out away. These are pretty cool bits. They use them a lot for laminated countertops and stuff like that. Now I just run my router around the circle and finish this piece. So far so good, but I'm going to have to make a part 3 to this video. I would still like to add a piece of molding around the side and finish it, and I have to put it together with an axle. Thanks for watching.